So let me ask you something. What does legal actually mean if you still don't have power? Out in the Nevada desert at a fully legal brothel, the workers, the women who generate the money, who are the product, who are the brand, are saying they don't control their own image, their own content, or even their own contracts. And when they tried to organize, people got fired. Now they're trying to form what will be the first brothel workers union in U.S. history. Not underground or illegal, just workers asking for labor rights. Today, we're talking to Adalind Gray, one of the women at the center of this fight. So the real question is simple. If your labor is legal, why aren't your rights? My name is Jovan Bradley, and this is Critical Mass. All right, Adalind, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, we have been like mutuals through our mutual friend, Jimmy Snow, but this is one of the first times we've gotten a chance to actually sit down and talk to each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. As soon as I had seen you post about this story, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley of things I like to learn about.
For sure.
Get Adalind to talk to me about it on the first episode of season 2 of my podcast. So welcome in. Thank you so much. Now, I have a couple questions for you about everything that's been going on. So we're going to just dive right into it. Very briefly, before we get into like the main questions, could you just give a little bit of information about what happened, what's going on, so that our audience knows a little bit about the background to this?
Yeah, so Nevada is the only state in the United States where prostitution is legal in very specific circumstances. It has to be in a county that's under a certain population. So despite common belief, it's still not legal in Vegas. But out in Pahrump, I previously, until recently, was working at Sherry's Ranch. And that all started to go downhill over the week of Christmas, where they decided to roll out a new contract they told us they were rolling it out, but they didn't let us go over it or anything. So all of the new ladies that were showing up to get ready to work that week were essentially just handed the contract and were expected to sign or leave. And one of the ladies, who is a little bit more legally informed, she was going through it and she sent it to Jupiter Jetson, who I would say is probably the biggest leader in this movement right now. And she definitely sounded the alarm bells on us because of just the audacity of what this new contract was saying, trying to own all of our intellectual property, have our power of attorney, and those were for sure by far like our main concerns, because what's the deal with that, you know?
Yeah. Can you describe a little bit about what your role was at Sherry's Ranch, like day-to-day work-wise?
Yeah, so I'm still like one of the newer ladies there. I am one of the sex workers who works there, so I would be available, to be booked, but I currently am not while I'm waiting for my job to get back. But I would be on the website. I would come to lineups. I would hang out in the bar, just like any of the other ladies there.
Yeah, and what led you to want to get involved in the union organizing effort?
Well, to be honest, I feel like I had no choice, especially once I got fired. But before that, I felt like I had to protect my job. And, I love working at Sherry's, but there's I have more than that. Like for the past 5 years, I've been building a very loyal online community who I love dearly, and I also have big goals of touring with my band someday, which I'm in the very early progress of. And what this contract would be saying, especially around the intellectual property clauses, is that the ranch could argue that they own all of that, like my name, my music, my entire likeness. And as much as I love working at Sherry's, there is a point where it just becomes asking too much.
Yeah.
And I can't work somewhere that's going to own far more than what I am there to work for.
Yeah.
So my initial involvement with talking to the union was to save my job because I want to work there, but I could not under the terms that they wanted. And I reached the breaking point when I was following my union's instructions with this contract that they were finally getting to the point where they were like, okay, you have to either sign or leave. So I followed the union's instructions to go ahead and sign the contract, but write the letters UD, standing for under duress, next to every signature. And it's fine. You should be protected. And I checked with everybody. I checked with the union. I checked with the Discord organization that we had. And I got confirmation that that's what we were doing and we'd be okay. And within minutes of me starting to do that, I got called into the office and I was told, like, hey, we heard that you were doing this. We're not going to accept the contract like that. So you can either sign without under duress, because their argument was you're not under duress, you're free to leave,
Yeah.
or you could just leave. And during this conversation, I started recording this on my phone. Nevada is a one-party consent state as far as in-person conversations. Not over the phone, but in person it is. And also, in this office, everything is already being recorded with audio and video anyway. So I was not recording anything that they did not have themselves anyway. But I went ahead and put that video conversation in the Discord chat. So one, people could see it, and two, so it could go to whoever may be able to use it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I can't sign this contract, so I was leaving voluntarily. They brought my bins of stuff out because, you know, we live there when we're working there. So they're kind enough to let us keep stuff on the property. But I packed that up in my car, and it didn't really set in at first. Like, 'cause at that point, I was leaving willfully, but I put in the chat what had happened, and immediately, like, people were thrilled that I had gotten this recording because it had just proved this entire situation was, in fact, under duress.
Yeah.
So I was far more polite than maybe I owed them, but you know, I was pretty cooperative of everything, and they told me that if I wanted, I could go ahead and go back and say that I was willing to sign the contract how they wanted me to, because I was now protected, and I also protected all the other ladies in the process of doing this. So I swallowed my pride, and I went back to the door and said, hey, I'm willing to sign. And it took me roughly an hour before I was able to get a final answer from somebody who had the power to tell me what was going on. But what I expected to happen was that our Madam Dina was either gonna let me sign how corporate wanted me to, or she was gonna say, hey, no, you made your decision. What's done is done. But what actually happened was she told me that because I recorded that conversation without consent, that goes against everything they stand for, and that unfortunately my contract was no longer on the table. And at that point, I was officially terminated. And that made me the third lady at the time to get wrongfully terminated for union activity.
After protecting both yourself and the other ladies of the brothel.
Yes, I very much took one for the team on this one, and I'm grateful to have done it, especially because the CWA, who we're unionizing with, is extremely confident that everybody who has been wrongfully terminated is going to get their jobs back.
Yeah, and the CWA is the Communication Workers of America.
Yes, it is.
Can you walk us through the circumstances of getting the contract and how you and the other ladies came to the realization that just something about it didn't feel right?
Yeah, so initially we thought it was like a mistake, like we were like, did you seriously just write a contract of ChatGPT or whatever, or did you copy and paste from something where this might make more sense? Like, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So initially it was a lot of us emailing individually to our madam requesting that we either have more time before we sign this, or taking issue with the clauses, especially around, intellectual property and power of attorney. And then we didn't really get much meaningful responses from that. And then there was a group email where a couple dozen or so ladies added their signature to that, and that was sent to corporate. I don't remember exactly what their response was, but again, nothing super meaningful.
Yeah.
And then we went through an attorney who, on our behalf, requested to speak with the ranch's attorney, who, in order to negotiate better terms. And they did respond. They were like, yeah, what's our terms? What's your terms that you want to negotiate on? And then we presented them, and then we never heard anything back after that. So that was where we were starting to talk about just picketing by ourselves, and honestly looking kind of silly, but feeling like we had no other choice. Until we got lucky, and it was a close friend of Jupiter who was able to get us in contact with the CWA, who was immediately just ready to, start swinging for us. And it's been so great just to finally feel like we have somebody besides just each other as sex workers backing us up.
What was the communication like prior to even the contract being laid out before you guys? How was the communication between sex worker and manager up to this point?
It's I would say it's pretty reflective of the communication through this whole contract situation. Dina is a very busy woman, and despite that, she still is kind of our only contact into the corporate space of that. So that's kind of how the Discord came to be in the first place. It wasn't originally meant to be for organizing. It was like a group effort to keep each other informed about policies, because it's just not uncommon for the word to not get to everybody right away. But yeah, it's pretty, I would say it's been roughly on brand, except the contract issue. We can tell that we're getting very intentionally non-answers, and that is something that is new with the
Yeah.
contract. Yeah.
And how did they characterize the contract when laying it out in front of you guys? Did they even mention any of this new stuff added, or it really was just a blind side for all of you?
So I know Jupiter mentioned that before they were officially rolling out the contract, there were murmurs like from the staff being like, "Oh, a lot of ladies aren't going to like this," like in that tone.
Yeah.
Um, but not not a lot of us were able to actually see it beforehand, and those of us who did, it was given to them. It wasn't me, but it was given to those ladies while they were already trying to get out the door, so they couldn't really really read it. But
Yeah.
but they've been justifying these things like the power of attorney um, by saying, "Oh, we need this in order to give pictures to media," which is just not true at all. That requires a model release,
Mhm.
and even though those model releases that they're wanting to sign with the new contract are extremely overbearing and give them way too much ownership of our pictures and
Yeah.
everything.
Now it's from the reporting that I've read, it's looking like this new contract will also give them essentially permanent rights to distribute content that's created by you guys, even separate of the ranch. And this, at least if the reporting is accurate, includes potential AI use. Um, like, what are your main concerns with things like that, and how that will affect your career, both while you're at the brothel and after you've left?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I can't prove what exactly the ranch wants with this power. Um, However, I don't want to find out.
Hmm.
And it's important to have a few of these hypothetical conversations in order to just state like how crazy like these clauses are, because even though like these contracts would not hold up in court, that is still what they're saying. And even if it wasn't to hold up in court, it's still money to fight, and
Hmm.
they can still say like sign or leave. But yeah, it's absolutely a concern that we've had. And even Jupiter has mentioned that she's had talks with Dina because corporate feels like they're missing out on money by a lot of the ladies having business outside of the ranch, which is just like even just strictly online stuff like
Hmm.
OnlyFans or professional porn shoots or whatnot. And Jupiter, she's told the story like she was asked what is a fair way that the ranch could get a share of this, and the answer is just straight up, you can't. Like
There
that
isn't.
is
Yeah.
not, yeah, that is not their expertise. They're not a content creation company. They are a brothel. Um, so we're pretty sure that this is them trying to just get their hand in that, and it really just comes down to outright greed. Um,
So this is something that they've sort of broached in the past. Their foray into trying to get a piece of that content pie from you guys isn't anything that was new to you. This just seemed like the overreaching last step almost.
Yeah, I mean, it was new for me to hear about because I am still pretty new to working at the ranch. I only joined this last summer. But
Mhm.
after chatting with some of the ladies who have been there for several years, I have learned that they've been kind of like thinking about this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And again, like I can't prove what they want to do with these overarching things, but you know, again, like I don't want to find out, and they shouldn't be thinking about that anyway.
Yeah. So, you were fired, stated reason because you filmed without consent. But from your perspective, do you view that firing as sort of retaliation for organizing? How do you think that Sherry's Ranch has responded to you guys trying to actually form a union to protect your rights?
Yeah, I know. I definitely believe it was retaliation. It said nowhere in our original contract that we weren't allowed to record things. I wasn't breaking any laws. And like I mentioned, they're already recording everything there. So
Yeah.
it felt like they were just searching for a reason to get rid of somebody who they saw as a problem, especially being involved in the union. And we know this to be called union busting, and that is illegal. Um, but I don't think the ranch has a good grasp on how badly they are messing up, especially because they continue to fire ladies for whatever reason they may be making up. And yeah, it was 100% retaliation. And despite that, I am still looking forward to going back. It's
Yeah, you're still interested in keeping a good relation with them and maintaining that as a job.
for sure. I mean, it's I love the establishment. I have friends there who I work with, and I'm sad that I wasn't able to see my clients over the week of Valentine's Day. I
Yeah.
was planning for that for a while.
Yeah. Now, what message would you want to send to other sex workers, both in Nevada, outside of that realm, both online and in person, who might be considering unionizing at their places of work or finding better ways to support their rights? What would you want to say to them?
I would say don't be afraid of it. If you can get in touch with a union that has your back, that is everything. Um, don't be afraid of the E word, employee. That's often a dirty word in sex work because they'll say, hey, if you're an employee, you don't get to set your own rates. You don't get to set your own, you don't get to dress the way you want. You don't get to choose your own clients. But that is not true in a union situation because all that being in a union as an employee allows you to do is to negotiate your contract. So in that contract, you can still say, we choose our own clients, we dress how we want, um, we set our own rates, all of those things that you're worried about losing, the union can still protect.
And what is your worker? What was your worker classification at the ranch? Did they classify you guys as employees or as independent contractors?
So we are currently classified as independent contractors, and that adds a level of complication to the unionization process. However, there is quite a bit of evidence that we're already being treated as employees. Therefore, we have that like misclassification case in progress right now
Yeah.
because if we were truly independent contractors, we'd be able to work whatever hours we want when we're assigned 12-hour shifts and we don't always get to choose it. Um, in general, we can wear what we want, but we do have somewhat strict guidelines. And we're not allowed to go home at night. That's not a legal thing, by the way. That's ranch policy. And so those of us who live in Vegas, like, we're not supposed to go home and sleep at night. It is quite a drive, but I know I have had times where it's like I would like to sleep in my own bed once.
Yeah.
Um, but
Did they ever give you a reason behind that policy?
I don't know if there's an official reason, but the consensus that us ladies have come to is that it's easier to talk to us as a group if we're all already on the property. And
Mhm.
honestly, like some of these things even make sense.
Yeah.
But it means that we're not actually independent contractors anyway.
Yeah.
So really realistically, just being recognized as actual employees gives us the opportunity to go back to our previous working conditions, except it only gets better.
Yeah. And what has it been like working with the CWA and having them back you guys through all of this?
It's honestly, I feel like it's been amazing. Like, it's been a stressful couple of weeks between all of these interviews and pushing the word out. Um, but I still kind of feel like I'm on top of the world. I'm exhausted, but um,
I know you were telling me that you are busier now than you were when you had the job.
literally, like, getting fired has made me busier because I'm fighting to get my job back.
Mhm.
But it's been amazing, and it's been really great to, like I mentioned, like, have somebody who is like has that kind of power, supporting sex workers when we're traditionally used to only having each other, and it's also given us um, a unique position to fight long-standing injustices that have just been standard across the ranches, like wage theft and tip theft, um, have been just the norm over all of the houses in Nevada. Um, and it's that, they'll take 50% of our tips, um, and because they also take 50% of our bookings, um, which, again, that has just been so standard. But because it's legal and we
Mhm.
have the privilege of doing that job without legal repercussions,
Yeah.
they get to just say, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't work here.
They get to
Um,
dictate the rules.
exactly. But now that we have somebody backing us up, um, we're able to fight that now. And we're hoping to get like a better cut than 50-50. And we're asking to have all of our tips. And we're also asking for the extremely egregious limo fees to be cracked down on, which I'll get into. The ranch, specifically Sherry's, but I know other locations have this too. They they love to talk about their free limo service. Um and they'll push it out, and
And so the limo, like, what is the limo service? What does that entail?
so I'll keep it related to Sherry's because that's where this is coming from. But in Sherry's context, if you live in Las Vegas, you can call them and have a limo pick you up and take you over to Pahrump, because it is like about an hour 20-minute drive. So
Okay.
it's like not unbearable, but it's not nothing either.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see the appeal in not needing to worry about the drive. And also they can pick you up from the airport too if you're flying from across the country or whatever. So they like to have the limo service for that, and they'd love to say, "Oh yeah, it's a free limo service. Like, you may as well just book it, you know?" Um but it's kept very quiet from clients that it's not actually free. Um the client doesn't necessarily have to pay for the limo itself, but what ends up happening is that a client that takes the limo, um when they book a party of a lady, they will take the full amount of that party. They'll skim 30% off the top. And that goes, I initially thought that went to the driver.
Yeah.
Um, but I found out recently that it actually just goes to the ranch. Um, and then the ladies are left with 50% of what's left over. So we're
Mhm.
really only getting 33% of that whole booking.
Yeah.
And different ladies have different ways of working with this. Sometimes we'll quietly raise our prices in order to compensate for that. Some ladies will just eat the price, and some won't take limo clients at all for this reason. Um, but there's just no reason that they need to be taking that much.
Yeah. How have you, in working with unionizing now and getting a bit more exposure on what's been going on at the ranch, have you faced any challenges knowing that you're in an industry that is so heavily stigmatized?
Honestly, I by the time I started working on my band and when I decided that I was going to be open to my fans about the band, I had accepted that I was taking a public enough role that this may affect me in the future anyway. Um, so I was ready to take a stand and be a more public facing role with this issue, especially because like I love working at Sherry's,
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, the response from the public has been almost universally supportive, with the exception of a few trolls here or there, the
Yeah.
random anti-union guy or whatever.
The usual online ragamuffins.
Right, but honestly, like I feel like almost the entire world is standing behind us right now,
It's
and
amazing.
yeah, it's been really great, and it just, if anything, just makes me even more confused why Sherry's hasn't budged yet. But we're hoping they're going to do the right thing eventually. We're not calling for a boycott right now because the ladies that are still working there are still like, I have friends that are working there right now, seeing their clients, and I am like, I cannot stress enough that I'm looking forward to going back despite all of this.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so important, like, we're not asking for a boycott. Like, please don't review bomb the place. We want them to do the right thing. We don't want to burn them down.
Mm-hmm. If you could sit down tomorrow with not just people who are making regulations regarding sex work, lawmakers, management, all of these people, if you could sit down and just give them your top 3 changes to not just Sherry's rants, but just sex workers' legal rights and protections in general, what would those be? What would be your go-tos?
Well, instantly, what comes to mind would be decriminalization. I think, people often turn to legalization because that's just what they hear about. They're like, oh, look, Nevada has legal brothels. Um, and then something like this comes out where it's actually, oh, maybe it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but we're working to get it there. Um, but it would be great if, instead of our only option being to work at one of these establishments, if it could just be not a crime to do it in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. There's such a rich history of sex work in Las Vegas. It's like, I can't wrap my head around why it was criminalized in the first place. I know there are other states right now that are starting to look into that, but that would be
Mhm.
my first thing. Just complete decriminalization. Just make it not a crime. I do not want women in jail doing their job,
Yeah.
especially when these are consenting adults, and it's weird to be it's weird to have it be a crime. But my second point would be to loosen up some of the brothel regulations, especially around opening new establishments. Like, that's currently not allowed. um I remember, I didn't know this, Jupiter Jetson, she told me the reason why it's currently illegal to open a new brothel is because in the 70s the brothel owners were burning down each other's properties out of competition. So they just made it illegal to open a new one so that when it was gone, it was gone. Um,
Okay.
but we're not in the 70s anymore. And, I'm not a, I would
Shouldn't be
certainly
something you have to be
hope.
worried about.
I definitely hope that would not be, especially we have a better age of security. I hope. I don't know, but yeah, I would in addition to decriminalization, I just feel like there should be more brothels because I love living in Las Vegas. I would like to do this work in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
either in or outside of a house. Um, and third, just, making the houses better to work in, which is what we in United Brothel Workers are fighting for. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of good work because it's going to, well, in the future, other houses will have the option to vote to join, and we're really going to be setting a standard for what it's like to be a sex worker in Nevada.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a little bit about it, but looking ahead, what does success in this look like for you guys? So I know you've mentioned a little bit getting back to the house, getting your job back, making sure that everything is better for you and your coworkers. Paint that picture for us one last time before we wrap up, just of what you guys want, both personally for yourself and then collectively for all of your coworkers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely we're not going to allow them to own our entire image. Uh, we're not going to allow them to have our power of attorney. Those were the new things that they were rolling out, and it's like, if sex workers start to allow this treatment, then eventually it's going to start bleeding into other industries. So we have to cut that head off now. And while we're at it, we're taking a stand against long-standing injustices like wage theft. And basically, by the time we're back working at the house, it's going to be better than ever before. And it can be reasonably said that it's likely just going to get better. And other houses will be watching, other ranches will be watching that, and hopefully follow in suit, and potentially ladies who may have wanted to work at the ranch before but didn't feel comfortable may want to start considering that.
Yeah.
And it may also be one of the building blocks to decriminalization in the future, but that may just be wishful thinking, but you never know.
So thank you so much, Adalind, for telling us all of this. For like I said, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are unaware that this is even going on, right? So thank you so much. Before we wrap up today, can we hear about your band? Can you tell us a little bit about the band?
Yeah, I can, sure. So my band is called Lies for Attention. I got my
That was my nickname in high school.
Here, it says it on my guitar. But
oh, sick.
But yeah, I've had it for a couple years now. We're trying to get something recorded and available this year. But my bassist and I have been searching for a drummer for about a year, but drummers, and here's the thing, man, music doesn't pay money. So we all need jobs, and that makes us busy. So it's a long process, but it's a process I'm committed to. And
I've been told I play a mean triangle. So if you ever need a triangle, I can ding with the best of them.
We'll talk. But yeah, it's I have a hard time describing our genre. But lately I've been saying it's kind of indie grunge with a shoegaze feel, but also kind of Midwest emo. But yeah, we're on Instagram at Lies for Attention, all one word. That's where we're most active. But again,
and where can people also find your personal stuff?
Yeah, my personal Instagram or my work Instagram, where I talk about union stuff and other spicy stuff is Adalind Gray _official on Twitter, which is definitely adults only, at Adalind Gray XO. And between those two sites, you should find everything you need.
All right, great. Adalind, thank you for joining us here on season 2, episode 1.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, make sure you let us know in the comments. Make sure you like the video. Hey guys, Future Jovan here. So my audio cut out for some reason. So here's me telling you, if you liked this episode of Critical Mass, please like the video on YouTube. Please subscribe to us here on Red Mirror Media. Again, subscriptions are like super important for YouTube channels to grow. So please consider subscribing. Thank you so much to Adalind once again for coming in and telling us all about her story and what's going on with the ladies at Sherry's Ranch. Thank you guys for listening. Please let us know if you want more of these. Comment people you want to see as guests. Do all the fun things. Thank you once again.